Hello, everybody. This is Megan,
And this is Alana.
and welcome to Tea Time Crimes. Gosh, your intro was so smooth. I almost forgot the name of the podcast. I was
I
speechless.
wowed you.
You wowed me silent. I had a beat of, oh my gosh, where are we? How are you doing? It's been a while since we recorded. We're off our schedule, so it feels like we've been apart for decades.
It always, we miss 1 week and it feels like forever.
Forever. I know we're good. We released on time and everything, but we messed up and didn't get our regular recording time in because I was out of town, and it's so sad when it happens.
Yeah, it is sad.
I was visiting family, and I have a niece and a nephew who are my son's age. Oh man, kids are something. They were my niece she's like a little angel from a Disney movie. She looks like she's a cartoon drawing of just perfection, and she has the sweetest little voice. Auntie Megan, will you read me a story? Like that's how she talks. She's amazing. And then the boys are the exact same age, and they're hilarious. You've got my nephew saying things like, I'm the first person ever born. I know everything. And then my son coming up to me, he says he's the first person alive. Is it true? I was like, no, obviously not. How would he be here? Look at auntie and uncle. Well, he says it is. I told him it's not. I said, okay, does this mean you can't play with him? I can't because he's not telling the truth. So I was like, oh my goodness.
Boy.
Yeah. And then, of course, my nephew loves it and just goes around saying it more. It's fun. Me and my brother enjoyed it for sure. They're hilarious.
I enjoyed the pictures. That's what I enjoyed.
Yeah. They play beautifully together. They're the same age, but my son is the Hulk.
Like, you can't understand how much bigger he looks than a kid 6 months younger than him.
6 weeks.
6 weeks?
Yes. 6 weeks.
Oh my God.
They're 6 weeks apart. And my niece and nephew are average size for their age. You know, they're hitting those marks.
Are they? Okay.
But they're probably petite. Yeah, they're probably petite. You know, not like me. They're petite. And then my son comes in like the Hulk that he is. And it's just, but it's so funny because my nephew's the one who's going headfirst down the slide and doing the na 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 na. And then my big giant is coming over. Oh, that was another big fight. They were swinging, and my son's not good at pumping. I mean, to be fair, he's got to move a lot more weight.
Yeah.
And then my nephew, my nephew said, geez, do you even go to school? How come you don't know how to swing?
Burn.
Yeah, sick burn. And so my son comes running over. He said, I didn't go to school, and I did.
Amazing. I would be such a bad parent because I would laugh. I'd be like, oh, that's a good one. I'm like, no, you're
I did. I looked at my brother. I was like, that's legit. Good. He's, you know, I mean, what are you going to say to that? Good Lord. My nephew and I share the same birthday, so we share a lot of traits.
I love that.
Yeah. But anyway, how was your time away from me? What did you do besides cry into your tea?
I was really busy and social, like a little socialite.
I'm sorry.
Only had one day when I didn't do anything.
You have other friends?
Well, the rugby team.
That's right. The rugby team.
Yeah.
What'd you guys do?
We watched a World Cup game. We had a cookout, like kind of stuff like that. So I kept busy and just cried at night. So
that's fair. I did as well.
Perfect.
I just would play old episodes to hear your voice. Just kidding.
Well, I did actually when I was working on some stuff.
Why? What episode did you listen to?
No, it was when I was getting we're getting ready for a website to be published.
That's right. Alana's building it.
Don't get your hopes up. It's not going to be anything great.
Lower your expectations, and then you will be pleased. All right. Do you have any big announcements? Or are you ready to hop into your tea review?
Let's hop into the tea.
Take us away.
All right. So this is a special one. One of our very special listeners associated with the Reverend and the Reprobate. I didn't even hesitate saying the whole name. I got it now. Were super thoughtful and sent me a tea. This is not them. I mean, they did send it physically, but it was from another listener connected to them. Don't worry about it.
You're being so confusing right now.
I know.
So the Reverend and the Reprobate, somebody who works on their show.
Yes.
Are we allowed to say her name?
I don't know.
All right.
Better be safe than sorry.
Well, she's wonderful, and she sent us a tea.
Yes.
You made that so complicated. You were like, the Reverend and the Reprobate went down to the post office. They met a man in a back alley, and then people from...
and then
crazy.
Slappy jumped out. Okay.
Slappy was there. I don't know what happened.
So this listener's husband got this at the Potawatomi powwow. So it's only available for purchase by the citizens there. I don't know if he is or not, but he was there at that powwow, which is really cool. And it reminded me, I was like, that nation sounds familiar to me. And it's because I read a book called Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And it's a really, really good book just about, there's a lot of native teachings in there, like respecting the land. It's really cool.
I think you mentioned that book in a previous episode.
I think I probably have. It's really special. It's stuck with me.
Yeah, I feel like you talked about reading it at the time. Yeah. I can't for the life of me remember when you said that.
But she's from this nation, so it's pretty cool.
Neat.
And this tea is Sweetgrass Tea. So it's from Buckskin Charlie's Sweetgrass and Trading. Sweetgrass tea, I love it, is used to treat coughs, sore throats, and a fever. When the tea is cooled, it can be used to treat infections. So, and like in the book, she also talks about, the healing properties and the properties, like foraging ingredients can, But
I'm willing to bet she knows what she's doing as well as Buckskin Charlie. I feel like they've got years of practice. They're not just throwing on overalls and nibbling to see if they die.
Gotta start somewhere.
Hopefully. Hopefully you don't end somewhere too.
Yeah, I know. All right, it smells very sweet.
Is sweetgrass actually sweet?
It smells sweet.
Okay.
I know that the tribe that I work for, there's some near the reservation, they'll find it and braid it and like keep it and I think use it to make like their area smell nice. It does have that sweet aroma.
Like in your home, like potpourri?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not an expert.
I also don't like potpourri, but sweetgrass makes way more sense.
Yeah, it's much more tame. Potpourri
like when you have a bowl of potpourri and you think it's a snack.
Oh,
just like
no.
That illusion, do you know?
That's why I was off olives for so long. I thought it was a bowl of grapes when I was a kid. Went in for it. Not grapes, olives. And it took me 20 years to get over that.
That is traumatizing.
Yeah, it was not great.
You as a little 5-year-old, what the hell is wrong with these grapes?
These grapes salty and slimy. Yeah. Anyways.
Sorry, back to the tea.
All right, going in. Ooh, the flavor is really nice. It's so unique. It's so hard to describe. It's, how chamomile kind of has that like mellow sweetness to it. It's not strong. It's like a very like the herbs of that tea. It kind of feels like this one where it's not like earthy like some other medicinal teas.
Yeah.
It feels like more herbal. I know that sounds very similar, but it's more flowery or sweet or
no, I get that. Yeah.
than woody, I guess.
Yeah. You're not making sense, but as somebody who has known you for a while, I get what it tastes like flowers rather than dirt.
Mm-hmm. There's no body.
Did you put anything in it?
No. Because I assume it's herbal. So no, just water. Hot water.
Not just chewing the dry tea.
I thought about it. It looked cool.
Stick with us for more recipes.
It's really nice. There's no body. It kind of slips through, hangs out at the back.
It sounds ethereal.
Yeah. That's a good way to say it.
Very airy.
It's like the perfect summer vibe too. Because like it reminds you of being outside and like, I don't know, like being in a field. So I'm going to give it a summery thumbs up. I really like it. I didn't know if I'd like the taste or not because it's obviously a unique flavor, but big summary thumbs up. It's hard to get. I don't know if you can source this elsewhere, but if you're, I don't know, around somewhere you can get Sweetgrass Tea, I highly recommend it. So thank you to our special listener. That was really, really thoughtful of you.
Yes.
Love this
We
tea.
love you. You're a good fan.
You are a good fan.
But her daughter likes the show too.
Yeah. Hi, daughter.
Hi, special listener daughter.
Hmm.
You could also, if you want this tea, you could just start your own podcast and wait for people to send you cool teas. Feel free. Yeah, that's one way. Or you could
But
just
you know,
look
you
for it.
really have to have the charm of us. So like people like you and I'll send you the teas.
You have to have that professional journalism and broadcasting vibe that we bring to the table.
Every week, baby.
All right, you ready for today's story? Dust your earmuffs off, girl.
No.
I mean, just a couple of deets you're not going to want to know about.
Okay.
But this story features several kick-ass women.
Yeah.
But it's a sad route to get there.
Ugh.
So on July 31st, 1970, I know, we're past your 60 mark, 4-year-old Heidi Jones wakes up and she's terrified. The night before, her mother, Loretta, had come to her room and told her, do not come out. And she'd shut the door. It's morning time now, and Heidi moves from her bed and she peers through the keyhole in her door. It's an actual keyhole.
I used to have one of those.
Right? And from there, she can see into the kitchen and through into the living room.
Shotgun home.
On the floor, she notices a shape.
Oh, no.
She opens the door, and blood is everywhere.
No.
The shape on the floor is her 23-year-old mother.
No.
Now, Heidi doesn't have another memory until 11:30 that morning when she makes her way out to the porch and she sees her neighbor playing in the yard. He's also a child. He's digging for worms because he's going to go fishing. He calls her over. He calls her over to come look at the bugs he's collecting, and she says, I can't. I think my mommy is dead.
Baby.
I know. The little boy, think about that. These two young children are trying to process something terrible, but the little boy goes to Heidi's house and he peers in the window and he also sees Loretta on the floor, so he runs home to get his mom.
Good.
So his mother, Sue Horvath, comes over. She does the same thing that her son did. She looks in the window. She sees Loretta and she immediately calls the police. So the police arrive at East 4th Street in Price, Utah. That's where Heidi and Loretta live. And they find that the single mother has been stabbed multiple times. She's lying face down on the living room floor between the couch and a table. Now, due to the position of her clothes, they suspect sexual assault.
No.
However, they are unable to find any signs of forced entry, which leads them to believe that Loretta possibly knew her attacker.
Yeah. I think that too, because she told Heidi to go in her room. She knew what was going to happen, but I wish she got help ahead of time.
Exactly. They estimate that the time of death happened somewhere between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. Loretta had last been seen alive around 9 that night out on her porch, and she'd been chit-chatting with a neighbor. The police also have another theory. In addition to Loretta knowing the attacker, Price, Utah is a very small town. In the 70s, it's about 6,000 people.
Oh, wow.
And it's low on crime. The fact that a murder has occurred is unbelievable. But that same night, 3 blocks away from Loretta and Heidi's home, an attempted abduction had also occurred. What are the odds?
There's a bad guy.
What are the odds? So 10-year-old Lori Kulo had been outside with her brother and his friend. Now, the boys were playing their own game while Lori did circles on her bike, kind of looping around the neighborhood. And it's the end of July, so daylight lasts a little longer.
Yeah.
And as she's doing these loops, she loses track of time and the sun begins to set. When she comes back from another loop, her brother and his friend had already gone inside the house, so she's outside alone. She realizes it's time to go in. She starts to head towards the house, and a man comes from behind and grabs her.
Oh, my God.
He puts one hand firmly over her mouth so she can't scream. She can barely breathe. And he takes the other arm and he wraps it around her body, pinning both her arms against her own torso. So she can't fight, really. But she still kicks and thrashes and tries to get free. And when she's doing that, the hand over her mouth slips for a moment.
Oh, good.
And when it slips, she lets out a blood-curdling scream. And this scream saves her life because her brother and his friend hear it and they come running out. The man drops her and takes off. Her brother, who's not much older, chases him and tries to catch up with him, but is unable to grab him. So the police were called, and Lori was able to give a basic description. She describes her attacker as having brown hair, light eyes, about 5'10", and wearing a bright yellow hat. She also stated that his hands smelled like hamburger grease.
Interesting.
And her brother, what's that?
Assuming he's white.
He's a white male, yes. Her brother gives the same description, with the exception of, obviously, he wasn't close enough to smell the grease, but he gives the same physical description, particularly the hat. And he also remembers that he had seen a man wearing a yellow hat, sitting on the curb, eating a hamburger, watching them play.
Ew.
Yeah.
I just don't like people.
Now, like I said, this town is small enough that the police believe these two crimes have to be connected.
Yeah.
The suspect attempted to abduct Lori, failed, and then ran 3 blocks south to Loretta's house. More than likely, he recognized it and went in the house.
Oh.
So with the discovery of Loretta's murder, investigators began searching the area. They're moving through miles around Loretta's home. They're looking for evidence. Maybe somebody dumped the murder weapon, maybe some pieces of clothing, maybe the suspect's still hiding.
Something.
Right. And during this search, they come across a hitchhiker who's from out of town. Suspicious timing to be a hitchhiker who also happens to be carrying a knife that might have blood on it.
What?
Yeah. So they say, hey, you're going to have to come with us down to the station.
Sorry, dude.
They bring in the 10-year-old Lori, right?
Oh, boy.
And she has to go down to see if she can ID the hitchhiker as her abductor.
Did the brother go too?
Her brother goes too, yeah. Now, as she describes it, Lori has to peer around the corner to catch a glimpse of him. Is there not any glass? Isn't he behind? Isn't he in a typical police lineup?
Oh, maybe they don't have that.
Yeah, so she has to peer around the corner. She's 10. This man has just tried to take her from her home. She has to peer around the corner, and then she says, no, that's not him. So that rules him out. Plus, what they thought was blood was not actually Loretta's blood.
Okay.
And he had an alibi. So they're pretty quickly able to clear this hitchhiker as just being in the wrong place at the wrong time as they were doing their search.
Yeah.
Police continue to also clear other suspects. And I'm not sure how they came across these suspects, but the Salt Lake Tribune writes, several hours after the slaying was discovered, officers detained more than one person described as hippie-type individuals with long hair and beards in Utah County Jail at Provo for questioning. And all of those folks were cleared. I know. Sir, your beard's too long. We're going to take you down for questioning. So they're clearing people that they think, I don't know, lots of times when they do investigations like this, they'll round up the known offenders in the area or the known violent offenders, right? And just question them. So maybe that's what they were doing. But with Loretta's autopsy, you weren't going to want to earmuff for the results.
I am.
Yes.
Okay, I'm earmuffed.
Okay. So Loretta had been stabbed 19 times with a small knife, 17 times in the back, 2 times in the front, and her neck had been slashed. They had found semen, they'd collected fingernails and hair for testing. Loretta only had 1 defensive wound on her wrist.
I'm here.
So based on the presence of only 1 defensive wound, the police have a new theory. Heidi never remembers hearing her mother scream.
Right. I was thinking about the night before. Like, did she not hear it? Did she block it out?
In fact, she doesn't remember her mother making a single sound. So police believe that Loretta stifled her screams to protect Heidi.
That's heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking. Afraid that Heidi would come out to check on her mom. She just kept her mouth shut during the attack, hoping to save her daughter.
Oh my God.
Which is so heartbreaking. And if you believe their theory that this is the same person, it messes with me because Lori, her scream saved her life.
Yeah.
Loretta swallowing her own scream saved Heidi's
her daughter's
life. Oof. Yuck.
Wow.
I can't imagine the willpower to do that.
Seriously.
It's unbelievable. Heidi says her mother is her hero.
Yeah.
So at this point, they have the autopsy results, but they have no physical evidence, and the case starts to slow down.
Oh.
Police don't have any leads. Loretta's funeral comes and goes, which Heidi remembers vividly. She remembers thinking her mother looked like Sleeping Beauty and sobbing as she was lowered into the ground. She also remembers that her mother wore a dress with a high collar to hide the slash across her neck.
Oh.
So a few weeks later, in August, a small blurb in the paper reports that there's a possible connection between Loretta's case and a similar stabbing of a mother and her 2 children. But that's just a red herring. They don't actually share any physical evidence. It seems to be a tragic coincidence.
Where is Heidi? Like, does she go with? Is there a relative she goes with?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll get to it. She's being taken care of, though. So meanwhile, Heidi, who's with her grandparents,
Okay.
good segue, her grandmother starts writing down anything and everything that Heidi says about that night.
Good. Yeah, because it'll come back.
It might be fleeting, right? It might come for a moment and then be gone.
Right.
She's only 4.
God.
And she tells her grandmother little bits of information. She writes it down and she calls the police. So Mrs. Jones calls to tell them that Heidi said, "I heard footsteps and he said, 'I'm going to kill you when I get through with you and your daughter too.' I heard a thud. It was Tom."
Huh. Tom.
So around the same time that Heidi's grandmother is relaying this, a tip comes in urging investigators, it's an anonymous tip, to look into a man named Tom Egley. Turns out Loretta had dated Tom a few times. They'd been set up on a blind date and they had I think they went out on a few dates. So he knew her, right?
Yeah.
So that paired with the tip, they go and pick up Tom, who at the time is living in a hotel with his then girlfriend who is 8 months pregnant.
Whoa.
Tom said he was in Price that night. He walked around, had a hamburger, went to a bar, and then back home where his girlfriend was waiting for him.
Bro, he did it.
Police interview the owner of the bar. Her name is Margaret, and she says, yes, Tom was here the night of the murder. He was here early on, then he left, and he returned later. When he returned, he had red paint all over his shirt.
Oh, red paint. Okay, sweetie.
At least that's what he told her when she asked why there were red dots all over him.
This guy's a psycho, like a dumbass psycho to do that.
So Tom fully cooperates. He hands over the clothes he wore that night and allows police to search the room and he has several pocket knives and things. He allows them to take all of it.
What?
Lori is brought back to see if she can ID Tom. So Lori and her brother Jim point Tom out of the lineup.
Yeah.
Now, some sources say Lori was unsure and wavered, and others say she was definitely positive that was the man who tried to abduct her.
But if the brother was sure, like I feel like he got a better view of him because she was just grabbed by him.
And from
like,
behind.
Right. And her brother's seeing that and will never forget that picture in his whole life, I bet.
So the police arrest Tom for the attempted kidnapping while they continue to gather evidence to see if he is in fact the one responsible for Loretta's murder. So they collect hair, fingerprints, they send everything to DC to be analyzed. Now, the fibers on Loretta's carpet are a similar match to the fibers on Tom, so they're able to arrest him.
Oh, yay.
Again, they think he tried to grab Lori. That didn't work. He was chased. He ran away. He recognized Loretta's house, and he just casually asked to come in. But the carpet fibers are not a strong connection. They prove to be a weak link because you can't prove that it's an exact match. Plus, Tom had been to Loretta's house before. So they have no physical evidence to link him to Loretta's actual murder or the kidnapping. And he is released after 90 days.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's clear he did it.
So after Tom's release, the case becomes cold. The police have no other leads. Heidi is formally adopted by her grandparents who raise her like she's their daughter. When the family's out and about, the grandmother will always say, and this is Heidi, my youngest. Like she's just enveloped into this family. Because Loretta came from a big family. She was one of 6 children. And so her aunts and uncles just became her siblings.
Yeah.
And Loretta's siblings remember what a great big sister Loretta had been. She'd shared a room with one of her younger sisters, and she said Loretta would entertain her with stories, and they'd pretend that the fairies from Sleeping Beauty, ironically, were under the bed, and they'd play, what are their names? Mary, Fauna, Merriweather?
That's
Something
not
like
what I
that.
watched often.
Really?
I
I
was
love Maleficent.
The Spindle terrified me as a kid.
Oh, so good. On the night of your 16th birthday. Oh, so
More of a
good.
Lion King gal.
You will prick your finger. Anyway, Maleficent's my favorite villain. But anyway, they've got the fairies, the magic, the good stuff of that movie. They'd also ride around listening to music, going to the shops, which if you're a big sister, I know you're not, you're a little sister,
I'm not a
but
little
like how
one.
often did your brother want to hang with you when he was driving age?
I mean, not.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. This is how kind Loretta is. She's
Yeah.
able to drive and she's still taking her little sister around, listening to music, hanging out, very, very kind. And when Loretta became pregnant at 19, she was not married and the father wanted nothing to do with it. And Loretta said she didn't care that she was going to raise this child, which for 1970, I mean, it's not 1870,
Yeah.
but for 1970, it still comes with some stigma attached to it,
Yeah,
right?
for
And she
sure.
did it anyway. So Loretta got a job working for her father. He had a contracting business. She's also taking accounting classes, and then she's spending all of her free time with Heidi. So the same traits she had as a big sister are even better as a mother. She made Heidi's clothes. She made Heidi's dolls.
Wow.
Heidi vividly remembers getting ice cream and dancing and singing with her mother, which I have few memories from being 4. Right? Like, so these were amazing moments of being with her mom.
Wow.
The two of them were said to always be together. Loretta always wanted to be with Heidi. They just were buds. So Heidi grows up with no more memories of that night, except the ones that she's shared with her grandmother. And the family just decides that it's not going to be solved and they want Loretta to rest in peace and they want to move on. They're doing their best to accept that the case just will never be solved. What are you mumbling about?
I have a prediction. Lori and Heidi are going to become a superhero vigilante team.
Oh, that'd be nice. Close. Here we go. So in 1986, Heidi moves to California, but she can't forget her mother's case.
I mean, who could?
And in 1989, she starts a letter writing campaign to law enforcement agencies asking for more information and wanting them to take another look at the case.
It's Tom.
Nothing comes from it. So she tucks the letters away and she just kind of moves on, accepting that the case is just going to be unsolved. But when she turns 40, so we're talking now.
Gee.
So we're talking like you and I are kicking it now. She decides it's time to face her past. This is early 2000s. She tells her friends, I'm moving back to Utah and solving my mother's murder.
Whoa.
Yeah. A few years later, fate intervenes in kind of a rude way because in July of 2009, Heidi's car is stolen.
Rude.
And Heidi posts about it, I assume on Facebook. And an old friend from high school, David Brewer, comments that he's in law enforcement.
Oh.
Heidi suddenly doesn't care about her car at all, but she thinks, I wonder if I could get him to look into my mother's case.
Yeah.
So she starts to think maybe if the sheriff sergeant, David Brewer, knew about the case, he'd be willing to reopen it. So she meets up with him. She tells him everything about it. Her memories, things her family had heard over the years, things her family knew, rumors that they'd heard. Every single thing she can think of, she tells David Brewer. And she gives David Brewer a charm that belonged to her mother. And she said, I don't want you to forget.
Wow.
Keep my mother in your mind while you're trying to solve this case. And he agrees. Now, only 1% of cold cases are solved. We know that from other cases. And so they make a deal in fun. And Heidi says, if you solve this case, I will get a tattoo of your favorite sports team. I'm willing to lay it all on the line, like just to be fun and, make that promise to each other. So Sergeant Brewer looks into the case, but the case file for Loretta Jones is missing. The interviews, the photos, the swabs, it's all gone.
What? Bro, I don't.
I know. They vary on what happened. Some say it was thrown away after the room had been flooded and the files had been damaged. Others say that they were moving to a different space and somebody just thought this case will never be solved and tossed it.
Nobody does that.
They do. Remember, it's happened before.
So bad. Like, what a moronic thing.
So the only thing Sergeant Brewer can find is the autopsy report, which is information he already knows.
Yeah.
that she'd been stabbed multiple times, assault, the swabs had been collected, but all those swabs are gone. So Brewer searches for other police officers who would work the case. The original police officers on the scene. They're all dead.
Wow.
Not a great start. He can find only one deputy who was the first to arrive at the scene, but this deputy really knows nothing. He said, I arrived at the scene and I just cordoned it off so nobody else would contaminate the scene. That's all I can tell you. Now, Heidi gives Brewer a few photos that she has of the crime scene. These are not crime photos. They are literal photos that her family took on their own. So there's a picture of Heidi standing in front of these very 70s style beads, you know the ones I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That hang in the doorway.
Yep.
In the entryway of the place where her mother died. The blood is still on the floor.
Jeez.
And her grandmother had taken it the day they were allowed back in the house. Which seems odd, but I have to tell you, I believe it was divinely guided here in a minute. So with that, David Brewer goes back to the original house. He takes in the layout. He tries to recreate what he thinks happened. They also find those beads that Heidi's standing in front of. They are put in somebody's garage in a box when they packed up the house. And he sends those to be analyzed, hoping that maybe they'll have some evidence on them, maybe some blood splatter or something like that. They don't. There's nothing on them. So he's got to do a different route. He starts scouring the newspapers, looking for suspects, witness names, investigative theories that were published. He also puts an ad in the paper asking for information. From that ad, the chief of police for Price City, David's with the sheriff's department, reaches out. They don't have the case file, but they have a report with all of the original interviews.
Oh.
This is huge because this allows Brewer to see the theories that the police had all decades ago.
All the daddies.
Yeah. And from these interviews, Brewer is able to see that the detectives at the time believed there was no sign of forced entry, which he didn't know, which means Loretta probably knew her attacker, and that there's a possible connection with the abduction. And that Tom Egley was the main suspect in both of these things. Question to the lady in front.
I still don't understand why he got let go for the kidnapping. Is it because 2 witnesses that are kids aren't enough?
Yeah, they talk about it a lot. The Kulos didn't know why, and they think it boiled down to the fact that there was no physical evidence. It was just simply eyewitness testimony in the dark.
Yeah.
But
it's crazy because it's very clear the sign. She smelled hamburger grease. He admitted to eating a hamburger. He came to the bar with red splatters on his chest.
I know. It's all it all makes perfect sense. But and so Brewer is asking that same question: why was Tom released?
Yeah.
So he tracks down the court reports. He's hoping to understand the why. He's assuming, listen, I'm sure they did their job. It was probably just a matter of the wrong guy being in the wrong place, and they didn't have anything that they could prove. He goes to get the court records. They're gone.
Okay, this is getting weird. There has to be something on the inside. I mean, but
they've been.
Heidi said Tom's name.
I know.
So does she remember him?
She knew who Tom was because he'd been on a couple of dates with her mother.
I feel like there's so much there.
I know, but you're a 4-year-old and it's now decades later. Jeez. Brewer doesn't stop, right? He has no court records. He finds the court reporter that worked on the case. It had been her first case. So because of that, she'd kept a copy of this one trial.
Wow.
And once he reads through it, it kind of confirms what he thought probably had happened, that Tom just couldn't be linked to it. They didn't have enough evidence. And they'd checked Tom's clothes. There was no physical evidence. They'd searched his room. No physical evidence. Still, this report helps because it gives him a list of the timelines, again, the theories, and the witnesses. So it gives him a starting point. He has to start this investigation all over. Jeez. So Brewer tracks down Tom's girlfriend at the time. Her name is Marcia. Hoping she'll remember, but also thinking maybe now that it's been so long, and right at the time she was 8 months pregnant, depending on Tom, maybe she'll be more willing to share information than she was at the time. So he gives her a call. Now, Marcia's very reluctant on the phone. She says, I don't have anything else to say to you. I told them everything I knew at the time. I don't know anything. And he said, I understand, but I'd really like to meet in person. because he finds that people are just more open when they're face to
Makes
face.
sense.
So he drives 14 hours to meet with her.
Whoa, he really wants her to get this tattoo.
Right? The drive pays off because when Brewer gets there, Marcia says Tom came home late the night of the murder around 3 to 4 in the morning. She asked, "Where had you been?" And he said something along the lines of, "What's it matter? I'm home now."
Ew, bad partner.
I know. Then he immediately went to take a bath,
Interesting.
which is unusual because it's 3 or 4 in the morning.
Yeah, might be the blood all over you.
Here's the part that's super unusual. He took a bath with his clothes on.
Yep.
And Brewer said, "I'm sorry, what?" I want to make sure I heard that right. He did what now? Then the next day, he went to the laundromat, which he never does. And when he returned, she noticed that some of his things were missing. And he said, some sources say he tossed them because they were ripped. Others say he burned them because they were ruined.
By blood.
So Brewer says, "Hey, did you tell the investigators this the first time around?" She said she did. Brewer's not sure. He said maybe she feels more comfortable and she said it now. Maybe she'd said it then and for some reason it didn't get put in a report. I don't know. But he thinks, okay, we have got to talk to this Tom guy. So they track down Tom. He's 70. He's living in Colorado.
Kick him in the nuts.
Just like with Marcia, Brewer makes the trip to visit Tom. He asks casually, "Hey, any idea why we might be here to see you today, Tom?" To which Tom says, "Well, years ago, one of my ex-girlfriends was killed, but he couldn't remember her name."
Ew, I hate you.
Why do they do that? Why do they always suddenly forget the name or the description of the person? That happened in that other case. It doesn't make any sense. So, however, he is able to remember his alibi and the fact that he had a hamburger that night. So Brewer thinks it's very suspicious that this gentleman can remember what he ate for dinner on July, of 1970, but he can't remember his ex-girlfriend's name.
Because he's a psychopath.
So he continues to push a little bit, and they ask him, "Hey, should somebody be punished for a murder after so long?" And Tom said, "Well, it depends if they've done it again."
What?
Yeah.
It's a weird answer.
Yeah. He returns home from this visit, and he's pretty confident that they have their guy, that they've always had their guy.
Yep.
But
it makes me so mad.
They have even less evidence than they did in 1970 because all the swabs have been destroyed.
Yeah.
Now they have the technology, but they don't have any of the evidence.
That's so stupid.
But they do not give up. Heidi is pushing this. Brewer and Heidi are talking constantly. Neither one of them is willing to give up. So Brewer takes this case to a conference to share the details and just get other opinions.
That's a good idea.
This is something that's so amazing about him. He at no point had a chip on his shoulder or thought, "I can do it." He wanted any help he could get in order to try and get information. So one woman at the conference, she works for a private lab, and she says, you can still recover DNA evidence. We've recovered it over 50 years.
Really? Because I thought germs die after 24 hours. But if it's like a hair, I guess, that would.
Yeah, but not DNA evidence. Somewhere. Yeah. So when he gets home, Brewer calls Heidi and he asks, "Will you be willing to exhume your mother's body? It's been over 40 years. She says, "Get me a shovel. I'll help dig." She is 1,000% committed to getting this solved. She doesn't care what it takes. And now Heidi did mention her grandmother had passed away the year before. And so she thinks that had her grandmother been alive, that the exhumation wouldn't have happened because her grandmother wouldn't have allowed it. But Heidi is committed to getting this solved. So with the exhumation, they're really hoping for DNA. So Loretta had been buried in a coffin that was placed in an airtight vault. So that improves their chances that they're going to be able to gather evidence, right? Now, another thing that they do, Brewer and his team publicize this because they want Tom to know about it. And they make sure the article makes it to Colorado to make him nervous, to let them know that they're recovering DNA and that they're going to be able to solve the case.
Well, what's the point of making him nervous? Like, what if he runs?
Just to play mind games with him, to hope he'll crack, or to hope he'll make a mistake, or to hope he'll, just know. So Loretta's body is exhumed in June of 2016.
Jeez.
Now Heidi was there. It was very tough for her.
Yeah, I cannot
Yeah,
Ugh,
she wanted to be
no,
there for her mom, but think of
literally
how
never.
awful that day must feel. You're faced with the terrible memories of your mother's death. You're remembering
Yeah.
her first funeral. I imagine you feel a little bit guilty about disturbing her.
Yeah.
And then you're also, that's mixed with like hope and
Mhm.
anxiety
Yeah,
and
that's
that you
ugh.
might find something.
It's
It's
crazy.
gotta feel so gross.
Yeah.
So the whole team is walking on this tightrope of anticipation and they pull the casket out of the ground and it starts falling to the side. Water starts rushing out of the airtight vault.
What?
Immediately, they're devastated. Something had happened. The vault had broken. It is full of water damage.
Why? They're not in New Orleans.
This means the chance of recovering evidence is basically non existent.
Oh my god.
But they've come this far, so they proceed, hoping maybe there'll be a miracle.
Oh, so she's just been sitting in water. Ugh.
But the miracle is not in the form that they were hoping. When they open the vault, the coffin inside has collapsed and is full of water.
So
There's
she isn't in a
no chance.
mausoleum? I'm trying to
She's
understand the
buried.
airtight container.
It's like her coffin is then put in a metal coffin,
Oh,
and
wow.
then she's buried underground. But it cracked or something, or
I'm
wasn't
gonna
sealed properly.
Okay.
And so it's ruined, and they're not able to recover any DNA at all. Now,
Jeez.
Loretta is scheduled to be buried again the next day, so David Brewer doesn't want her to be left alone. He feels responsible for disturbing her, so he spends the night in the building to guard her body until the next morning when she's transferred to a new casket.
Literally my worst nightmare, but
I know, but this guy,
that guy's amazing.
I know. Oh my gosh. So investigators have to decide what to do next. Every lead they think they have just gets destroyed. Look at the case file,
Yeah.
it's gone. Read the court reports, it's gone.
It
Look at the
feels
swabs,
fishy.
they're gone. Yeah. They are not going to give up. Heidi is not going to give up. They keep the results, which there weren't any, of the exhumation a secret. And they very artfully say, yes, we've concluded it and we're very excited about what we've found. And that's all they say.
Oh.
So even though they didn't get the results they were expecting, two big tips come on the heels of this being publicized.
Oh shit, yeah.
So a woman named Linda, she lived with the Jones briefly with Heidi's grandparents while she was
Okay.
going to college. She was, or I guess a day or two later, the scene was released back to the family. And so she was able, actually, I think it was even before the scene was released. I think they allowed this woman to come in and get clothes for Heidi.
Oh, okay.
So she walked by the crime scene.
God, it must be so disturbing to do.
Yeah. And she said, I just want to make sure you know that you've seen the crime scene photos. And he said, no, I haven't. They were all destroyed. She's talking to David Brewer. And she said, well, you don't know that Loretta wrote the name of her killer in blood?
What?
And he said, okay, that obviously, like things get exaggerated over time. That can't be true. And Linda says, no, I saw it with my own eyes. In her own blood, Loretta had clearly written the letters T-O. And they believe she died before she could write the M.
Oh my God. How did this is what I'm saying. Why didn't that come up before? The cops
It did, but the whole case file got thrown out. So Brewer goes to the one photo he has, which I told you the grandmother took the photo of Heidi in front of the bloodstain, which seemed weird at the time.
Yeah.
But he took that photo, he had it enhanced, he blew it up right there on the floor, just like Linda said, are the letters T-O.
It's clearly him. Why didn't they pin the fucker?
Now, Heidi said she did not realize this. This was not information that had been told to her family. And so this is a huge, huge lead for them. I mean, and it's got to be validating for her. She's like, yeah, I know. I told you guys this 50 years ago. Where have you been?
Ugh.
So Brewer says, okay, we know who it is. This kind of information. I get chills when I see this. Like the fact that this woman, Loretta, kept silent to keep her daughter safe. And then before, in her last dying moments, she starts writing this man's name. It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
So
it really is.
luckily, Brewer also gets a call from another woman. This woman's name is Lisa Carter. Is that the name of Wonder Woman? No,
I
Linda
think
Carter.
so. Oh, so
Well-
close.
Well, she's Wonder Woman's cousin because she happens to be Tom's current neighbor. And Tom had been friends with her father, so she knows Tom pretty well.
Fuck you, Tom.
And she calls up Brewer. She says, I just want you to know that Tom did it. So just letting you know. And he says, well, how can you know? Did he tell you? She says, no. But after you guys came to talk to him, he came over to ask me if I could watch his dogs in case he had to go away for a while. And Brewer says, okay, well, that's suspicious, but I can't do anything with that. Do you
No,
have
it's
anything
not.
else? And she said, well, I've also seen it. I've also seen the violence in him. One day he came over because a tree in my property, the branches were in his yard, and he came over with a chainsaw to cut the tree down. And when I tapped him on the shoulder, he turned around and swung the chainsaw at me.
What?
And she said, this look in his eyes, he was a different person.
Can't you be charged for attempted assault there? Anyways.
Right? You'd think.
No, this guy clearly did it. He clearly has issues.
Right? So, but this is all validating, but they need more than that. You can't just go to court and say, well, he asked me to dog sit, so let's tie this case up. So they need something.
That he's lived a jail-free life for 40 years. I hate it.
Over. So Lisa says, all right, well, how about you guys just wire me and I'll talk to him and I'll get him to talk.
Fuck yeah, Lisa.
I know. So Lisa, this is what they come up with. So Lisa's husband is actually in law enforcement. They come up with a plan together that she's going to feed Tom information that she says her own husband told her secretly about the investigation to kind of warn Tom and see if Tom will open up to her, all while recording this. And I think she's just recording it with her cell phone. I don't think this is like a big high-tech operation. This is a woman just going over, sitting on the porch, pressing record on her phone and hoping that she's safe.
You know what kills me? Poker face, she never does it. She always gets herself in a bad situation. She never records on her phone. Continue.
You took a real left turn. Are you referring to the TV show Poker Face?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. I wrote in my notes, let's pause and have a moment of silence for Lisa's courage. I can't even play. I played hide and seek this last week. I start shaking when 5-year-olds are looking for me because I'm so nervous. It's like, they're going to find me. Oh.
One time I hid in a trash can forever and they never found me.
Oh my gosh. How did you get out?
They had to let me out.
So they did find you.
Eventually, yeah. When I said something.
He said, help, I'm Oscar the Grouch. But like, I don't think I could do it. I get nervous doing.
This would be terrifying.
Terrifying.
But if you had like a really good reason, I bet you could.
Yeah, I bet I could, but I promise
it elevates you to the cause.
I'm almost soiling myself at every turn. This woman seemed just like, yeah, had to be done. I did it. That's how this woman comes across. Like she's my role model.
Yeah.
So she starts having these regular talks with Tom. She's sitting on the porch talking about the case, trying to create this, rapport with him. She lets him know that they found DNA on Loretta. Tom says that's bullshit. And Lisa pushes and said, no, the dry environment in Utah has preserved evidence. Like, how is she thinking of this stuff on the fly? I'd never in a million years. And that they had touch DNA and they had bodily fluids and that they were going to have them analyzed. She's doing this kind of stuff regularly. It's unclear to me how many of these talks Lisa had. It seems like more than one.
Okay.
And then eventually she just keeps pushing and saying, they've got DNA evidence, Tom. Like, are you sure there's nothing you want to tell me? That's kind of the approach she takes. And he starts talking about that night. Now, Tom says in his own words that he was turned down for sex and that Loretta then went to the kitchen and shut Heidi's door. I have to assume that's when she knew something was going to happen. I'm sure she thought she was going to be raped and she did not want her daughter to hear it or to be involved in it. So she told Heidi to stay in her room no matter what she heard. Now, when Loretta came back from the kitchen, Tom said he attacked her and he stabbed her. I imagine that is her one defensive wound because she probably was taken by surprise. Then Tom says they proceeded to have sex, which he says was consensual because she didn't say no.
That's not how it works. You just attacked her and stabbed her.
Yeah. So Lisa is disgusted at this point, trying to keep her cool because
That would be so hard. That's when I would
Right?
fail. I'd be like, fuck you, and throw the phone at his head. And then it would break and it would all go to shit.
Yeah, she said it was really hard. Yeah. And he said that he lost it and he cut her throat.
Can you imagine? Like, we could have neighbors like this.
Gosh, I'm looking at
People
my
are
window.
so disturbing.
So again, meanwhile, Lisa's playing it cool. I mean, I'm sobbing. You're attacking a person.
Yeah.
We're not doing well in this situation.
Not doing great.
She's asking more questions. She's like,
Oh
what'd you
my
stab her
God.
with? Pocket knife? What kind was it? Like asking specific, helpful questions. Cool under pressure. And then she says, the family just wants closure. Would you be willing to talk to the police? They just want closure. No big thing. Tom agrees.
He's an idiot also. We know this, though, because he went to the bar with a blood spattered shirt.
He agrees under one condition, that they promise not to arrest him. And they're like, sounds good. Pinky promise, fingers crossed behind my back. So he talks to David Brewer and his team. He said he remembers slitting Loretta's throat, but not stabbing her, even though he said that to Lisa.
Yeah.
And that he thinks he tossed the knife in the river and that he'd been drinking. And Brewer says to Tom, is there anything you want to say to Loretta's daughter? He says, please tell her I'm sorry that I killed her mother.
He just admitted to it.
Yeah. And so Brewer calls Heidi. He says, hey, what you doing? She's like, nothing. What's up? He goes, I just want to let you know that Tom says he's sorry you killed your mom. And she just starts like losing it. I don't know.
Right. Like 50 years of release.
It's happened. Finally. So now they can officially charge Tom. It's August 2016, 46 years later.
I'm so upset that he had all of that time free.
Yeah. Tom agrees to plead guilty to murder if they drop the rape charges. Heidi says sure. So in October of 2016, Tom says guilty. Heidi makes a victim impact statement at the trial, cataloging all the moments that her mom missed because of Tom.
Wow.
When Tom was asked if he had anything to say, he said, I'm sorry I killed her, and I'm surprised you're doing something about it after 46 years.
Really? That's what you have to say?
Oh, her family was pissed.
He'd be dead probably if I knew.
It doesn't matter if it's been 46 minutes or 46 years. Of course, we're going to do something.
Right?
Now, all right. Take deep breaths for this.
Oh, boy.
Tom is sentenced
to
10 years to life, which is the max sentence in Utah under the 1970 laws, which he is subject to because that's when the murder occurred. Heidi says that she plans to be at every single parole hearing to speak for her mom.
Oh, because it's still within the 10 years right now.
Yeah, because this was 2016. So in 2026, he'll technically be eligible for, he is currently, but he's, going to be 80 when he's up for parole. So when Heidi was asked, what do you want people to learn from this, to remember from this? And she said that my mom mattered.
Oh. I mean, she saved her life.
Yeah. And Heidi says, as long as you have hope, you have a chance.
Preach.
And Heidi now has a tattoo of the Oakland Raiders on her calf.
Yeah. I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, holy moly.
Wow.
Like the women in that story. So you have the two little girls, right? You've got Heidi, who has remembered things from being a 4-year-old, has made it outside to get help. I don't even know that most 4-year-olds could do that.
I have no idea.
And then you have Lori, who's IDing gross men left and right, trying to help catch a killer. You've got Loretta, who saved her daughter's life by keeping in any noise while she was being brutally attacked.
I can't imagine.
And you've got badass Lisa Carter, who's like, I got this, guys. Let me just dust off my cell phone and go ask some questions. Don't worry about it. I'll wrap this up for you. She convinced a man who'd been free for 46 years to confess.
Yeah.
She recorded it, and then she also was like, you should just tell the police. Thanks.
And then he did.
And then he's like, yeah, that sounds right. Holy moly. And Heidi never gave up. I mean, gosh, I just there's a 99% chance that this was never going to go this way.
Right.
And she never gave up.
Wow, we need more of those people.
Yeah. And I know he's not a lady, but he gets an honorary
He's a
mention
badass.
here at Tea Time Crimes because Sergeant David Brewer, I'm not sure if that's his official title. I apologize if he's been promoted since. But David Brewer just kept, he did not stop. Every turn.
Yeah.
So many people would have been like, case file's not even there. I don't have time for this.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
But he really cared
just
about the
kept
case.
going. Yeah.
Doing what's right.
So what are your last words?
Never give up, never surrender, as said in Galaxy Quest. But it applies
I don't know
here.
what that means, but
It's a great movie. You'd hate it.
it appears to be on topic.
It's just, I don't know. It feels crazy that you can know someone did it and you can't put them away for it.
I know.
I hate that.
I hate it too. Like, he's eating a hamburger. He smells like hamburger. Lori says it's him. He has blood on his shirt. Who takes a bath with their clothes on, whether you're trying to hide evidence or not? I just...
It's so disturbing.
There's just so many things that make it clear
of
what happened that night.
Immediately. Even before all this additional stuff.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Even in 1970. But if you don't have the physical evidence, a good defense attorney can explain things away.
And just doing the right thing. Doing what you can, I guess, right? We saw that in so many different ways in this case.
Yeah.
Of your actions can make a difference. Lisa didn't know Heidi or Loretta or anything. She's just a person seeing this in the newspaper, and she's like, I'm gonna turn this motherfucker in. And
it's also, we talked about this in the last case. It was a neighbor, right, who wrote the anonymous letter.
Yeah.
Again, having the courage. I really think I would struggle being like, oh, they're probably fine. They're just grumpy. It would be hard for me to make that connection and feel as though I could call in that tip. But she obviously was onto something, and she felt it.
Yeah.
And she got to listen to your gut, even if you think the worst case scenario is that some police officer on the other end's going to say, yeah, okay, we'll check into it. Right. That's the worst thing that could happen. So being able to just trust your gut and get help and report those things that you think are not going great. She cracked that case wide open.
She did. Just incredible.
Amazing.
I'm so happy at the ending, but I really hope he stubs his toe, but breaks it a lot.
All right. Well,
yeah. And shards of metal will go up his finger, his toenail.
Oof, that's brutal.
Yeah.
All right. Who should listen?
Neighbors and daughters and mothers and police officers and judges and the little people who type, or not little people, the people who type on the thing during the court case. They have that really weird
all
keyboard.
Of the children who are taking the court reports. Continue your solid work. Why did you say?
I don't know. Because I meant the little thing. I hate their keyboard, but I am also fascinated by it. And
it's got 5 keys, and they have to learn all the shorthand. Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing.
And I guess coffin builders. I still don't understand what happened. Utah is a dry place.
You don't think you got one rainstorm in 46 years?
Fair.
It's just, I guess it's a matter of if you do it incorrectly over time, it could seep through, or it could, if there was a crack in it, it would seep through with, a couple of storms.
True.
All right. Well, you can find us on all the platforms at
Tea Time Crimes.
You can email us at
teatimecrimes@gmail.com.
Please rate, review, like, subscribe, and send us suggestions for teas and crimes.
Get us to 25. We're hanging on at 24 reviews on Apple Podcasts. Get us to the 25. You don't even have to leave a review. You can just put a star rating, even if it's a 1.
Well, shoot, if that's all you need, I can do that right now. But once I learn how, hold on. Grandma's got to try. And to all the children typing out there,
Keep
Thank
up the
you.
hard work.
Keep it going, guys. All right. That's it. We out.
Tea Time Crimes out.
Bye. Thank you for listening.
Thanks.